Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge. It's the middle of the month of May. The teams continue to roll on here as we continue with WNBA regular season, Major League Baseball regular season, the NFL schedule release. The Seawolves continue their season in MLR with some not so good updates about that. The NWSL season continues, so things are chugging along here. So, with that being said, we will jump right over to the NFL schedule release for our Seattle Seahawks with Bel. Bel, take it away.
So the past week, the schedule was released. I think that was released on the 12th. We'll go through that here. The preseason schedule, week one, we have the Seahawks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week two, they are playing here against the Chicago Bears. Week three at the Dallas Cowboys. And then let's dive right into the regular season here. Week one, we get to see a matchup against Russell Wilson. That will be against the Denver Broncos, and that's a 5:15 game. Do we have a date for that? No.
I missed that one. It's a Monday night game, so I think it's part of the week one doubleheader. They always have the doubleheaders on week one. That had to be purposeful.
Oh, definitely.
So that'll be a fun matchup to see, but it'll be really interesting to see the reception that Russell gets when he comes back to Seattle. It'll be interesting to see who cheers him, who boos him, how the overall response will be. That'll be an interesting game, and it'll be really interesting to see how this roster performs, because obviously there's a lot of new pieces. It's I'm going to prepare for not the best outcome, just because, again, this is probably a team that's going to need probably a couple weeks to figure it out. But
yeah, and while it's a good matchup, that's also kind of what I've hoped for when they faced the Broncos, is that they at least had a couple of games to get into rhythm before they faced off. But we get them week one. So let's go ahead and keep moving forward here. Week two at the San Francisco 49ers. Week three versus Atlanta Falcons. Week four at Detroit Lions. Week five at New Orleans Saints. Week six versus the Arizona Cardinals. Week seven at the Los Angeles Chargers. Week eight versus the New York Giants. Week nine at the Arizona Cardinals. Week 10 at Tampa Bay. Week 11 is our bye week. Week 12 versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Week 13 at the Los Angeles Rams. Week 14 versus the Carolina Panthers. Week 15 versus San Francisco 49ers. Week 16 at the Kansas City Chiefs. And week 17 versus the New York Jets. Last, our, again, added week here, week 18 versus the LA Rams. And before I ask you what games kind of stood out to you here, I will go ahead and say that week 6 against the Cardinals stood out to me, just because that will be the last game that DeAndre Hopkins is on suspension. So, hey, we get a matchup against the Cardinals, our division rivals, without one of their star wide receivers. Of course, they do have Marquise Hollywood Brown, so it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to him, but you don't have to worry about Hopkins out there, so at least that's a plus.
Yeah, and I know in since the time that he's been a Cardinal, I don't remember who it was specifically that was on him, but there was a certain corner where they just went after him again and again and again with Hopkins. Playing against one of the best receivers in the world is less than ideal. Having to avoid that, pretty good. So yeah, I think that's a good point there. You know, it's important. I think you were talking about that, where we would be playing them in regards to his suspension. So that's good. I am curious, at least we'll get this out of the way. The bye week for years has been an issue with Seattle, whether it's early or not. Week 11 is pretty solid. Week 11, and then I think that was pointed out, 4 of the 5 games to end the season for Seattle are at home. So I know that, again, in recent years, Lumen Field hasn't necessarily been this home field advantage that it has been since it opened as Seahawks Stadium, and then Quest Field, CenturyLink Field, now Lumen Field. But that's got to be advantageous. It's better to get that out of the way, I think, all those road games, and then come and play at home. But I don't know. I wanted to talk to you about that, like an interesting stretch of the season that you had to get through. And we were looking at them. I don't know if that stretch is necessarily, and I consider stretch 3 games or more.
Yeah.
Because there are several 2-game points here. If we look back at it,
look tough.
Playing the Broncos and then the Niners right after, that's a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Falcons, Detroit, not really worried about. Saints, kind of a question mark. Cardinals, they're always pesky. It's a divisional game. So Cardinals, and then, Broncos, Niners, and then Cardinals, Chargers, Chargers, they're a damn good team, and they've got a lot of talent. And we look at the AFC West already. That's a loaded division.
Yeah.
And the Chargers, I would hope that they would be, considering my bias and not wanting Denver to do well, I would hope that the Chargers would be one of those better teams, and I'm assuming they will be. But you look at Arizona Chargers game, and then play that Chargers game, play the Giants. Not too worried about the Giants, but the last time they were here, I think it was Colt McCoy, and they beat us. That was a terrible game. And then after that, week 9 and week 10 at the Cardinals,
and then
at the Buccaneers in the Germany game.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like there's a bunch of 2-offs. Is there anything else? Obviously, the Cardinals game sticks out, but is there anything else that sticks out to you about the schedule?
No, and I think you're right that 2 game at the Cardinals, and then you have to travel all the way to Germany to play the Buccaneers. Also, towards the end of the schedule here, you play the 49ers at home, and then you travel to Kansas City for the last road game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that one looks a little tough as well, but nothing, like you said, not really a stretch of games there. And it is important to note here that they weren't scheduled for any Sunday night football games.
And obviously games can be flexed, but unless Seattle hits a roll, I don't think that's going to happen. No. And I'm okay with it. I mean, this is, again, a roster that's going to figure things out. Even if Drew Lock or Geno Smith is going to be the quarterback, they're going to need to figure things out. And unless one of them comes out, wins the starting job, and gets on a roll, I don't see any of those Sunday night games being played. And that's fine, because I don't expect this. I know that the mantra has been this is a team that wants to contend right away.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't see that happening necessarily this year. I think next week we'll look at that, and we'll look at the win-loss kind of thing. We'll give our predictions on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see this right now as a roster that says, hey, we're going to come out, we're going to compete, and we're going to battle for one of the playoff spots in an NFC West that has the 49ers who have a ton of talent on offense but are being held back by Jimmy Garoppolo. I will say that right now. I don't care. A Cardinals team that has a lot of talent on that offense, obviously without DeAndre Hopkins for 6 games, but still a lot of danger on that team. A defense that has a lot of talent as well. Don't even have to mention the Rams,
right,
and what they're capable of. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. And unless you get a proven commodity, and unless I'm going to say it's going to be Drew Lock, but unless Drew Lock or Geno Smith can be an average to above average guy, I don't see that happening. So I'm not too concerned about not getting primetime this year. When we had a guy like Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner on the team, why are we not getting more primetime matchups? But we don't.
Yeah.
So it's not that much of a concern to me.
And you mentioned how a stretch to you means 3 weeks straight, right? So the bye week crushing that right in the middle of a kind of a stretch you wouldn't consider that a stretch, because looking at this now, they do go play the Cardinals, then they play Tampa Bay. They have that bye week in week 11, but then they come back and face the Raiders, and then right after that, they're in Los Angeles for the Rams.
Yeah, so I guess the that 4-game stretch, not including the bye week, is kind of that would be the sort of the gauntlet to run effectively. But that bye week obviously softens things.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And with injuries, the way things have played out for Seattle in recent years, getting a late bye week. Yeah, so I think that softens the blow, but that's definitely a good point out on that.
All right, moving past the schedule here, there were some roster moves on the 13th, all wide receiver roster moves. They signed Deontay Alexander and Kevin Cassis. They waived Matt Cole, Jake Herslow, John Mitchell, and Dimitri Robertson. On May 16th, which was today, we just received the news that they signed corner Elijah Jones and tackle Liam Ryan. And that about covers it for our Seahawks there. And so we can move on to league news now. Former Jags kicker suing organization. Josh Lambo is seeking his full 2021 salary and damages for emotional distress after receiving abuse from Urban Meyer. Does that surprise you at all?
No.
No.
It's that whole, I mean, I think Jaguars owner Shad Khan spoke about it, but anything related to Meyer is just, it's always negative from now in here on out that I've seen, and it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
So I hope Lambo gets paid in full for that.
Yeah.
It's just disappointing to see any news continue to come out from that era.
Yeah, so hopefully he gets appropriately compensated there. On the 12th, Jerry Jeudy was arrested. He faces misdemeanor domestic violence charges in Colorado. He did have a dispute with a woman who they share a baby with. Nothing physical. He kept some of her belongings in his car because she had one of his belongings, and it sounds like it all could have been avoided. But anywho, he did get arrested and then was released because of that no physical contact with a woman prior to the arrest. So we'll see how all that pans out, and if he gets anything in terms of repercussion from the team. Yeah.
I don't see anything like a suspension, probably a fine, if anything.
On the 13th, Jarvis Landry agreed to sign with the New Orleans Saints on a 1-year deal. So the Browns lose Jarvis Landry there, and he will be playing in New Orleans now. On the 14th, more details on Earl Thomas's latest incident arose. Former Seahawks safety Earl Thomas was reportedly arrested Friday night after an arrest warrant was issued for him in April because he violated the protective order 2 or more times within 12 months. That's considered a third-degree felony. Thomas is only allowed to contact his wife, who has filed for divorce, on a co-parenting app. Thomas refused to download the app, threatening her and their children. Thomas reportedly said that he hopes his wife's car drives off the road with the children in it, and also allegedly wanted to talk about wanting members of his family to poison the children. So not good news for Earl Thomas there. And of course, that doesn't help his attempt to play again, which I don't think
I don't think he'll ever.
I don't see that happening, but definitely doesn't help. On the 15th, Drew Brees' future was kind of questioned. A report came out about Brees leaving NBC as an analyst, and then Brees tweeted, "Despite speculation from media about my future this fall, I am currently undecided. I may work for NBC, I may play football again, and I may focus on business and philanthropy. I'll let you know." So a couple of questions on whether he'll come back and play, but
I don't know. That kind of seems doubtful. Like you and I were talking about before we started here. He wasn't good in the last few seasons that he played. So I don't know. I don't know what that's about. Maybe he just doesn't feel at home in the analyst booth.
Sure. Moving forward here on the 16th, Sean Payton might be joining Fox. Payton won't be too far from the NFL next season, as he will fill a few roles with Fox. And that about covers it for our Seahawks here. The only thing looking ahead that we have now is in late July, which is NFL training camp. So we'll make sure to report more on news as we have it here.